So online reviews of Wahid aren't exactly great, and some of the comments are pretty bad. In this video, I'm going to cover 5 things of why you should be careful before you invest in Wahid, and you won't be hearing these points anywhere else. Now, before I begin, I want to make clear that the issues in this video are ones existing right now, and hopefully they'll get fixed soon. But I'm going to be starting with the most important requirement to any relationship, whether that's your family, your friends, or your investment provider, and that's communication. So if I go back and remember what Wahid was like 4 years ago, I'd say the communication was adequate. Any issues that I raised, they got back to me in a decent amount of time. But over the past year, I'd say that standard has drastically fallen. I've contacted them on several issues, such as misapplied deposits to inaccurate data. And the responses, well, I can't say they've all been positive or poor, because to be honest, I'm still waiting for some of the answers several months after raising them. Now, when you think about your relationship with Wahid, which is based on you giving them your hard-earned money, communication is going to be top of the list of what you want from them. Now, there could be several reasons why the standard has fallen, and if I had to guess, I'd say it's related to the next issue, which is overexpansion. See, Wahid has been expanding rapidly over the past few years. They've got into wills, property, pensions, celebrity sponsorships, and I'm sure all of that has resulted in a much larger customer base. But as the customer base increases, all of the support functions need to increase in tandem, including customer support. Now, of course, from a company perspective, expansion is great, but as you get more customers, you need to support those customers adequately. And when you can't export all those customers, or the more accurate terminology here being investors, then naturally they'll get panicky and leave the platform. What's happened here is a classic case of too much too soon, and you inevitably end up failing in some areas. A prime example being Wahid's announcement that they were going to launch a UK bank account where your money would be backed by gold. And I was at the launch event where the CEO had traveled from America to London to announce this, and he explained how we're now going back to the way that money should be in Islam. But they hadn't thought this whole plan through, and what happened was everyone getting excited, but in the end, the idea was quietly pulled. Now, failing is okay. Every successful company fails sometimes, but growing without a plan leads to customer confusion, and in my opinion, isn't putting customer needs first. And this leads on to the next point, which is poor customer UI. So there's a couple of things that Wahid does well, and its user interface is good, but you also need to understand what the customer requires and if you're giving it to them. So let's take a step back here. Wahid is a very helpful platform for Muslims that are starting to invest in the stock market, and they're constantly improving themselves as well. A good example was something that was going to be included in this video, which was the lack of consolidated tax information, but they've fixed this gap whilst I was in the middle of writing this video script, so credit to Wahid where it's due. However, this is only part of the fix. The UI doesn't show you everything you need to know from a tax perspective, and beginner investors might not even know this. So one of their products in the UK is a tax efficient account called an ISA, and they might offer similar tax efficient products in other jurisdictions. But generally, one of the requirements for all of these special types of accounts is that there's a maximum limit that you can invest in it in every fiscal year. If you go over that limit, then you'll face a financial penalty from the government. And Wahid doesn't actually allow me to view the amount I've invested for a specific period during the year to see if I'm over or under the limit. The only options Wahid gives me is to review either 6 months or 1 year of my investment. So I'm 3/4 of the year through, and I need to see how much I've invested in the past 9 months to know how much more I can invest in the next 3 months without going over the limit. But if the only options that I can see are either 6 months or 12 months in the app, then I'll have to manually add up all my investments myself, which is going to be very, very long. This could mean you run the risk of facing a financial penalty due to Wahid's poor user interface. And just to put this video into context, I'm saying it's a poor user interface because other investment platforms such as Trading 212, Robinhood, or Vanguard all allow users to do this very easily. You can select 2 random dates and see immediately how much you're invested, and they'll also show you how much is left of your tax-free allowance for the remaining year. Now, I'm sure if you ask Wahid customer service to provide you with that details of your investments from one date to another date, they'll provide it to you. But I've already called out the issue with customer service, so even if I ask them, I'm not sure when I'll get a reply. Okay, so I've just covered Wahid's issue of not showing everything to the customer. And in some ways, this concept of everything is kind of related to the next issue, which is a lack of diversification. So in my original video on Wahid, one of the great things that I said was that it invests in index funds, which is a great idea for beginner investments as well as advanced investors, because index funds gives you diversification. The whole point of an index fund is that it shields you from any one stock going bad, as an index is a combination of several companies, each with their own weightings in the index. Now, whilst I'm qualified in Islamic finance, meaning I have a good opinion if something is Sharia compliant, I'm also a chartered accountant, meaning I always like to look into the details and make judgments on the financial value something gives. So let's look at the index funds that Wahid offers and if they give you value from diversification. Okay, so here we have some of the main index funds that you'll be investing in when you sign up to Wahid. You've got the HSBC Islamic Index, which is roughly 17% of your portfolio. Nearly 50% of this is technology and nearly 20% is focused on one single company, Microsoft. Second index, the iShares World Islamic ETF, which is also roughly 17% of your portfolio. And we have over a third invested in technology sector. And again, nearly 20% is in Microsoft alone. We've also got the HSBC Global Index, which is almost 20% of your portfolio. So let's see if the weighting is different from the other two. But surprise, surprise, nearly 50% of this index is nearly technology and 10% is allocated to Microsoft. Lastly, we've got Wahid's own index, Wahid FTSE USA Shariah, which is available in the UK. And this makes up around 16% of your portfolio. Again, strong bias towards one single company, Microsoft, with a 14% rating, and also heavily focused on the tech sector. Even when you analyze the other top 10 companies in each of those indexes, you'd be thinking, what is the difference here? They're pretty much the same options. So it should be obvious now what the issue is. If these indexes are supposed to help you diversify your risk by not concentrating on any one company or any one sector, it doesn't look like that's what's happening here. It looks like the majority of your investments are in Microsoft and also the tech sector. Now, Microsoft is a great company. I'll happily invest in Microsoft on its own, but if I'm going to be investing in an index, I don't want to be investing in one company. I can do that myself, and I can do that for much cheaper. Now, there are some indexes which are offered by Wahid, which are much more diversified, such as the HSBC Europe Islamic ETF, which has a very, very good split of sectors, as well as a balanced weighting of companies in the index. But this makes up less than 3% of your fund. And I will be making a full video where I cover and compare all of the Islamic index options out there for investors in greater detail. So make sure you subscribe to catch that video. But right now, we have a problem here. They probably understood the issue of the problem yourselves. However, let me take this one step further, and it becomes an even bigger issue for Muslim investors when they choose Wahid. So the past couple of years, Islamic investors have been very lucky. The majority of Sharia compliant stocks are in tech companies, and these are the companies that have been delivering amazing returns in the stock market, which makes Islamic investors pretty happy with their returns. But these stocks will go down at some point, and that's perfectly normal in the stock market. You can't expect something to carry on rising forever. But that's not the problem here. The issue here is when tech companies go down, because of your overexposure to this sector, you'll end up with a much larger loss compared to, say, someone who invested in an index fund, which is more diversified, which in turn, whilst taking a loss, will have a much lesser loss compared to you as a Muslim investor. Of course, this video isn't financial advice, so do your own research, but don't invest unless you're prepared to lose your money. That's just a normal part of investing where your capital can go up as well as down. So in summary, just because Wahid offers a large number of indexes for people to invest in, that doesn't mean you're getting value, especially if the point of the funds was diversification and you're actually getting the opposite. But the issue doesn't stop at the lack of diversification. The other point that you have to be careful of is cost. All right, so this one is very important, but you might not realize how big of a deal it is right now. If you look at what Wahid charges for users, it might seem small, but the world of investing, this is actually a massive number. The usual platform charges are around 0.5 to 0.6% at best, and these small percentages in the beginning might not seem a lot, but as your portfolio grows, so will this actual cost that's being charged to you. And I'm talking in the tens of thousands. So that's the first point. Wahid is expensive. And we just saw previously that there's a lot of duplications occurring. And as an investor, you're paying for all that duplicated work. But maybe that's the price to pay for a company that pretty much has a monopoly on Islamic investing platforms. Hopefully there'll be more entrants soon, but the second point about cost is actually much worse than the first one, and that's the cost of investing in Wahid's own index on Wahid's own platform. So it's a common playbook that the large investment platforms also have their own investment products, which you can buy on other platforms. So you can buy BlackRock index funds on Trading 212, as well as the BlackRock platform. You can buy JP Morgan's index funds on Robinhood, as well as JP Morgan's platform. And the most common example is Vanguard, who offer their own indexes on various investment platforms, as well as their own. Now, here's the point. When you create something and you host it on your own platform, it should be cheaper for you to offer that to investors than offering it on other platforms, because you're saving a lot of costs from doing everything in-house. But Wahid's fees to invest in its own index fund on their own platform isn't any lower than the other indexes on the platform. In the world of investing, this doesn't make any sense. Not only are you paying for duplicated indexes, but you're also paying for hosting Wahid on Wahid. Look, at the end of the day, Wahid has innovated a lot, and it's definitely something I like. And I sincerely hope that they keep offering great products to Muslims. This video may seem very negative, but the topic of this video was only the negative points. I have made a more optimistic video of Wahid, which I'll link in the description box below. But if you feel you want to understand more about how Islamic finance rules are made, I'll leave a video next to me, so go check that out, and I'll see you all in the next video.